Just then, the door swung open, and one of the men stepped inside, his eyes narrowing as they landed on Clara. "You're looking for answers, aren't you?" he said, a smirk playing on his lips. The tension in the room thickened, and Clara felt a mix of fear and determination. She had to stand her ground. "I want to know where Tom is," she replied, her voice stronger than she felt. The man chuckled darkly. "You really think you can handle the truth?" he taunted, leaning closer. Clara could feel the weight of his gaze, and for a moment, doubt crept in. What if she was in over her head? But then she thought of Tom, the love they shared, and the life they had built together. She couldn't let fear win. "Tell me what you know," Clara demanded, her heart pounding in her chest. The man paused, his expression shifting from amusement to something more serious. "You have no idea what you're getting into, girl," he warned, his voice low. "But if you really want the truth, you might want to be ready for the consequences." As the words hung in the air, Clara felt the gravity of her situation. The stakes had never been higher, and she was standing on the precipice of something dangerous. The answers she sought were within reach, but they came with a price. With every fiber of her being, Clara knew she had to push forward to unearth the secrets that had ensnared her husband. Little did she know, the answers she sought would lead her down a path of betrayal, danger, and a truth that could shatter everything she held dear. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the town, the air thickened with tension. Sarah stood at the edge of the old quarry, her heart racing. She had uncovered something that could change everything. A hidden journal belonging to her late father, filled with secrets about the town's past, and a connection to the mysterious disappearances that had haunted the community for decades. The journal hinted at a cover-up involving powerful figures in the town, and Sarah knew she needed to confront them before it was too late. Gathering her courage, she decided to confront Mayor Thompson, the very person who had publicly dismissed the disappearances as mere urban legends. As she approached the town hall, she felt a mixture of fear and determination. The townsfolk had always trusted the mayor, but now Sarah had proof that could shatter that trust. She burst into the mayor's office, journal in hand, ready to expose the truth. "Sarah, what are you doing here?" Mayor Thompson asked, his voice steady, but his eyes betraying a flicker of concern. "You shouldn't be here." "I found my father's journal," she declared, holding it up like a shield. "It reveals everything, the disappearances, the cover-up. You can't keep lying to the people." The mayor's facade cracked for a moment, and Sarah could see the weight of the truth pressing down on him. "You don't understand what you're getting into," he warned, his tone shifting from authoritative to desperate. "Some things are better left buried." But Sarah was undeterred. She had spent too long in the shadows, and now she was ready to step into the light. The people deserve to know the truth. We can't let fear control us anymore. In that moment, a commotion erupted outside the building. A crowd had gathered, drawn by the tension in the air. Sarah's friends, including Jake and Mia, had rallied the townsfolk, armed with their own copies of the journal that had circulated in whispers. They had come to support her, to stand against the corruption that had plagued their town for too long. As the crowd grew, Sarah felt a surge of hope. She stepped out onto the balcony overlooking the gathering, the journal clutched tightly in her hand. "Listen," she shouted, her voice ringing clear. "This town has been living in fear for too long. We deserve to know the truth about our past and the safety of our future." The crowd murmured in agreement, their faces a mix of anger and determination. Mayor Thompson's bravado faltered as the reality of the situation sank in. The townspeople were no longer willing to accept his lies. They wanted justice, and they wanted answers. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the back of the crowd, an elderly woman, Miss Henderson, who had lived in the town for decades. She stepped forward, her voice trembling yet resolute. "I've seen things too. I lost my daughter to this darkness, and I've kept quiet for far too long. It's time we speak up." Her words ignited a fire within the crowd. One by one, others began to share their stories of loss, fear, and silence. The weight of their collective grief transformed into a powerful force, and Sarah felt the tide turning. They were no longer just victims. They were a community united in their quest for truth. As the mayor realized he was losing control, he attempted to dismiss the crowd, but it was too late. The townspeople demanded an investigation, and with the journal as evidence, they had the momentum needed to pursue justice. The climax of their struggle was not just about exposing the mayor, but reclaiming their voices in their town. In the weeks that followed, the town was shaken to its core. The investigation revealed deep-rooted corruption, leading to arrests and the uncovering of long-hidden truths. Sarah became a symbol of hope, inspiring others to stand up against injustice in their own communities. The town slowly began to heal, rebuilding on the foundation of honesty and trust. As Sarah stood at the quarry once more, the sun shining brightly overhead, she reflected on the journey they had taken. She had learned that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the determination to act despite it. The bonds forged in the struggle had made them stronger, and together they had transformed their pain into power. The story of their fight would be passed down through generations, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the light of truth could shine through. Sarah smiled, knowing that while the past could not be changed, the future was theirs to shape. And with that realization, she felt a sense of peace, ready to embrace whatever came next. The day of the school assembly finally arrived, and there was an air of excitement buzzing through the halls of Ridgeview High. Students whispered to one another, teachers exchanged knowing smiles, and Barron did his best to keep his nerves in check. Everything had been carefully planned, and now it was time to put their efforts into action. The assembly hall was packed, with students filling every seat and teachers lining the walls. Mr. Henderson, as always, stood near the back, ready to clean up after the event once it was over. He had no idea he was about to be the center of attention. The principal stepped onto the stage, welcoming everyone and beginning what seemed like a standard assembly. But just as the students began to settle into their routine announcements, the principal paused and said, "Before we continue, we'd like to take a moment to honor someone very special to this school. Someone who works tirelessly behind the scenes to keep everything running smoothly. Someone who has touched countless lives with his kindness and dedication." The room fell silent, and all eyes turned to Mr. Henderson. Confused and slightly embarrassed, Mr. Henderson looked around, unsure of what was happening. The principal gestured for him to come to the stage. Reluctantly, and with the encouragement of a few students nearby, he made his way forward, his face a mix of surprise and humility. The crowd erupted into applause, cheering loudly as Mr. Henderson stepped onto the stage. Barron, seated near the front, felt his heart pounding in his chest. This was the moment they had all been waiting for. He stood up, taking a deep breath, and walked onto the stage to join Mr. Henderson. The janitor looked at him with confusion, his brows furrowing as if to ask, "What is going on?" Barron took the microphone and began to speak. "Mr. Henderson, for years you've been more than just a janitor to all of us. You've been a mentor, a friend, and someone who always puts others before yourself. We've seen the sacrifices you've made, the challenges you've faced, and yet you've never stopped showing up for us with a smile on your face. Today, we want to show you how much you mean to us." Barron gestured toward the side of the stage, and the curtain was pulled back, revealing a brand new SUV, decorated with balloons and a large bow. The room erupted into gasps, cheers, and applause. Mr. Henderson stood frozen, his hands covering his mouth as tears welled up in his eyes. The shock and disbelief were written all over his face. "This is for you," Barron continued, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "We know how much you've been through, and we hope this will make your life just a little bit easier. It's our way of saying thank you for everything you've done for us." Tears streamed down Mr. Henderson's face as he looked at the SUV, then back at Barron and the students who had made this possible. For a moment, he was speechless, overwhelmed by the generosity and love being shown to him. Finally, he managed to say, "I don't even know what to say. This is more than I ever could have dreamed of. Thank you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you." The students and staff rose to their feet, giving Mr. Henderson a standing ovation. It was a moment filled with emotion, one that would be remembered by everyone in the room for years to come. Barron handed Mr. Henderson the keys, and the janitor's hands trembled as he held them. He hugged Barron tightly, whispering, "You have no idea how much this means to me." As the applause continued, Barron stepped back, letting Mr. Henderson have his moment. He felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that this act of kindness had made a real difference in someone's life. For Mr. Henderson, the SUV wasn't just a vehicle, it was a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest times, there are people who care. In the days that followed, the story of Mr. Henderson's surprise spread beyond the school, touching the hearts of people in the community and beyond. It became a powerful reminder of the impact of compassion and the importance of looking out for one another. And as for Mr. Henderson, his life didn't suddenly become perfect, but it became a little brighter. With his new SUV, he no longer had to worry about breaking down on his way to work or walking miles in the cold. More than that, he carried with him the knowledge that he was valued and appreciated, a feeling that gave him the strength to keep going. In the end, it wasn't just about the SUV. It was about the love and gratitude of a school community coming together to lift up one of their own. And for everyone who witnessed it, it was a reminder that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can lead to the most extraordinary moments.